corona pandemic keep waging war in the United Kingdom. 111,000 people died so far. But the good news is the vaccine has arrived and we have vaccinated 11 million people so far. And we are in the second lockdown until 8th of March. It may extend. So we are in an awkward time of the year again. What do we do in COVID pandemic and lockdown? We propose that yoga has a role at this hour. Now, to tell us about yoga, the science and the practice of yoga, we have the expert, Dr. Sakthidharan Karunanidhi. We popularly known as Sakti. Sakti is a graduate of Coimbatore Medical College. Hey. And after his MBBS, he obtained MD degree from National Institute of Health and Family Science in New Delhi. Then he came to the United Kingdom. Currently, he works as a director of the public health in Preston, and he is a COVID lead for Lancashire. Some of you might have seen him already in the BBC television interview quite a few times. He is also expert in yoga. Now, Sakti, the floor is yours. Sakthidharan.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, sir. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Particularly, many of you, I think, are from, or at least some of you are from the same medical college that I went. So that's an extra pleasure. And also a double bonus in the sense, a professional practice, public health practice, and personal interest in yoga coming together is a very rare opportunity. So I really jumped on the chance when Dr. Shanmugaragan asked me to be part of this session. I think we have an hour, sir. Is that right?
Well, half an hour for your talk and half an hour question and answer.
Yeah.
We have a very experienced group here, and some of them already doing yoga. So a lot of questions for you, half an hour. Yeah?
Excellent. I certainly am an expert in public health, but I'm still on the journey in terms of yoga. For those of you who understand yoga in its broadest sense. So what I'll do is I'll jump straight into the session if I can share my screen, which I think I can. I want to cover shortly what my perspectives on yoga are, with a particular focus on science and where science fits in. And I'm sure we will get into the practicalities and question and answer sessions towards the end of it. As much as possible, let us keep it interactive, because the more we interact, the more we all learn. I certainly will learn from this very august gathering. A couple of acknowledgements first. My journey on this one has been particularly accelerated by the Center for Yoga and Spiritual Education in Aliyar, near Coimbatore. There is a temple of consciousness. Sri Vedatri Maharishi is a philosopher, a spiritual master, and I have and continue to learn a lot from his thinking and techniques. And the second person I would like to acknowledge is Professor Satbir Singh Khalsa. He's from Harvard. He's also a yoga practitioner, as it turns out. He works in a medical school there. He's written so extensively about the principles and actual practice of yoga in healthcare. Because we know yoga is traditional for for us from our culture. And we have, knowingly or unknowingly, would have been practicing some aspects of that since our childhood, like I experienced. But the level of understanding behind yoga and its scientific evidence base has been expounded by this gentleman who I have the pleasure to work along as part of Yoga and Healthcare Alliance. So I really want to acknowledge his work, which is what mainly I'll be drawing on from for this morning session, and all the other authors. There is a really in-depth book, the one that's on the screen. If you are interested, I strongly recommend this. This is an emerging field in science and healthcare medical practice. There is quite a lot of ongoing research and opportunity for further exploration if anybody is interested. I have benefited greatly from his work, and I just wanted to acknowledge both these gentlemen and their movements and organizations from the start. Now, we will have different understandings of yoga. Certainly, in the Western world, yoga is interpreted as what people in their middle ages, particularly women, do on a Wednesday afternoon or weekly session. This is generally what is understood as yoga in the Western culture, but that is not quite the case historically in Indian culture. Yoga is very much a multi-dimensional practice, which involves mind, body, and dare I say spirit. And it's a combination of movement, breathing, relaxation, as well as meditative techniques, which is often related to religion in terms of meditation and contemplation. We'll come back to it. And likewise, even meditation itself, particularly again in the Western world, often gets mixed up with mindfulness. And I just wanted to spend a few seconds in terms of reminding us what actually yoga in traditional context means. Yoga meaning union of body and mind and soul, but there is even a deeper meaning, which is living in harmony between self, society, and nature. Even this pandemic, I'd like to argue that there has been an imbalance between the behaviors of self, the society, and the nature. And wherever there is imbalance, we've seen epidemics and pandemics in the future, in the past. And as such, yoga is very well documented as having 8 components: yamam, niyamam, pranayamam, asanam, pranayamam, pratyaharam, dharanam, dhyanam, and samadhi. I'll just take these aspects very briefly. Yamam and niyamam are observances and how we relate to each other. Morality, not stealing. There is various components, but it is behaviors that one observes to oneself and with others. That is both the beginning and the end of, if you think about yoga as a cycle having 8 components, this Ashtanga yoga as this is called. But then asanas are mainly involving movement, stretching, various poses, generally combined with breathing as well. Even if you take Surya Namaskaram, it is to be done with coordination of breath. But asanas are generally musculoskeletal, involving musculoskeletal movements. And pranayamam is the breathing. There are multiple, various types of breathing techniques that are in yoga. And that is one of my favorite areas of interest. If you think about breathing, breathing is both an involuntary and a voluntary activity. And they are connected with both voluntary and central and autonomic nervous system. And there are quite a lot of quite a lot of research that is there in breathing. We will look at it in brief. So that is asana and pranayama. So you got the first four parts covered: yamam, niyamam, asanam, pranayamam. After that, it is all to do with mind, starting with pratyahara, which is withdrawal of self or sensations or just sensory pleasures. And dharana is concentration. Dhyanam is contemplative state. And samadhi is meant to be the ultimate state of bliss or ecstasy or realization. So this is to be understood in detail if one has to really understand yoga.
Dr. Shakti, can I just interrupt? Can you please do the screen share, because we can't see the PowerPoint or the asanas.
I am sharing my screen. Can
I can't. Can everyone see it?
We can, yes.
I can see it. Who's this? Who's speaking?
Oh, then it's a problem in my. I'll do in my settings. Sorry.
I mean, the present screen I can see is what is yoga, what is evidence based.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we can see.
If you switch off and switch back, that would be good.
Yeah, I'll try. Thanks.
Okay. So in yoga itself, in the Ashtanga yoga, there are two main parts. One is to do with self, the other one is to do with others. Especially yamam and niyamam is observances and how we live in a society. And then the rest are to do with the self. And even within the self, it's a combination of musculoskeletal, respiratory, and mental states. It's a different aspects to that. So that is what we normally understand as yoga, and that is what is documented in the historical literature and in our cultural heritage. Now let us go into evidence base, and this must be of interest to all of us in our daily practice, especially if you're a medical practitioner or working in healthcare. Evidence base is so fundamental. If it is if there is no empirical evidence, then it is considered as weak evidence. But think about thousands of years ago, where there were no randomized control trials, not even telescopes or microscopes, let alone electron microscopes and understanding atom and electroencephalograms and so on. In those days, it was purely, well, even before observations, it was revealed truth or realized truth, which was mainly relied upon and passed on. Even before writing and printing, they were all invented. It was Shruti. So hearsay from revealed truth or realized truth, which then got questioned, especially as people started to think. And at that time, the realized truth were also combined with religious preachings. And there was a time when people started to ask questions. How can we just follow this all blindly just because someone says so? And that's how the whole era of philosophy started. Western philosophers mainly focusing on reason, not revealed truth, reason. You go back to Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, right from there now on. And then science evolved, the evidence base evolved. We would be able to see things at a distance, as well as the micro, nano details. And still there is an explanatory gap in terms of how we explain the impact of yoga particularly on mental states. And those of you who work in psychiatry or in the field of mind, I'm sure you agree that there is still a debate ongoing. What is even mind? Can we see it? Can we feel it? Can we describe it? And has it got a particular causation? Although currently evidence base is there that mental states are very much associated, if not causative, for many other physical states. So when we start questioning about evidence base itself, there are lots of types of evidence base that we're drawing from in terms of yoga, and particularly experiential evidence base, which is something that the moment you start opening your mouth and describing it, it gets confused and conflated with the language we use and the meaning that we put on various words. So there are some aspects of yoga that probably are best experienced. And that, again, experiential learning is something that is very relevant in any field of work. So that is what I'm going to rely on, not just pure empirical scientific evidence in published papers, but also wider aspects of evidence. I just wanted to give that. The reason why it is important is there are some significant implications of this, especially in modern society where life is very fast as well as getting shorter sometimes, especially a good life or a happy life. And understanding this, I believe, has wide-ranging implications from personal health to societal harmony, as well as the wider peace for human society. And there are various systems or dimensions when it comes to scientific evidence base related to yoga. We've seen some of this already. Musculoskeletal is mainly your joints, particularly joints, but can also include muscles, but it usually starts as joints, the major joints being supple, so we can be mobile and do all our activities of daily living right at the end, till the end. But some practices also have muscular involvement, but generally they are aimed at the joints. And pranayama is nothing but conscious breathing. There are various types. Normally, the inhalation and exhalation, there is a ratio of 1:2. You inhale with an effort and exhale without an effort. And that is very much related to the vagal nerve and as well as the sympathetic deactivation, which is what I was referring to earlier on. And by the way, the references to all of this is in that book, so I've not made it into a 100% technically academic presentation, but if you want, I can share all the references. I'm just keeping it short and sweet, hopefully with a lot of interaction at the end. But there is quite a lot of emerging evidence that links pranayama with stress, and the pathway is on sympathetic deactivation. And then meditation again has a number of dimensions to that. Usually starts as concentration on a single object, and then tracing the mind itself. And as you go into philosophical domains and realized teachings, meditation ends in merging with one's own self, or realization of one's own self with its origin, or samadhi as it's described. But from a scientific point of view, especially when you look at techniques like MRI, there are various parts of the brain that gets activated, and the differential blood flow, particularly in terms of modulating the immune system and neuroendocrinal systems, which of course we know that the master gland and headmaster gland are all up there, and that controls both all the systems in the body. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is rumination and mind wandering. Again, it's something that we all experience. Our mind wanders. You can't stop the mind. But when you start to know your mind, it might slow down. And mind wandering and rumination is associated with depression. So these contemplative practices including mindfulness techniques. It starts as really awareness of our own self, and then tracing the mind, and different schools of thoughts in terms of how technically, practically you do this with an object, with sound, with your breath, with you follow the life energy, which is what my area of interest and practice is, the Kundalini energy or life energy as they call it. So that's one aspect of meditation. And then the brain plasticity and pain thresholds, including cognition, which is the ability to make sense and think. And there are some subdomains of cognition, which I think I'll refer to in the next slide. They're all showing positive effects on those functions with meditative practices and contemplative practices. And all of this put together really is about managing stress or allostasis. Allostasis is the ability to maintain balance of your homeostasis, which is your inner balance, in the event of any stress internally or externally. So these are all studies that are very fascinating, multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional studies that involve physiological measurements, endocrinal measurements, as well as behavioral aspects. It's a domain of research which is quite fascinating in itself if one is interested. I've learned quite a lot, even the research techniques, through personal practice of yoga, and who would have thought that that has happened. And then all of this really leads to better mind-body awareness. Mind-body awareness is something that's very topical these days, especially in terms of interaction between physical health and mental health and self-worth and wider issues, not just health issues, but social issues as well. Family issues, domestic violence, even suicides. They're all linked in with self-worth and mind-body awareness. And then the latest or the difficult to research part of yoga involves the consciousness itself. And that is one of the hard problems these days, hard problems to crack. Science is only as good as the instruments it's using. If it is beyond the normal range, we can't detect. Agree? Or beyond a range, we can't detect. We don't understand. And the contemplative state of consciousness and the research around that involves both subjective as well as objective measurements. And this is where you start getting into metacognition and superconsciousness. These are all realized and documented experiences rather than experiments, if you will. I'll quickly summarize in the next few slides. So in summary, yoga practices, you can draw the logic model as having effects on all these functions, from fitness to self-regulation, awareness, as well as into the spiritual dimensions. And overall, it is increasingly being documented that it leads to better human functioning, if you will. And this is again linked to self-realization, which also has been documented in Maslow's theory of a hierarchy. Particularly the love and compassion, although they may appear to be soft words, the link between feeling loved and being compassionate and our endocrinal states and our ability to understand what's going on around us is another emerging field. Just on the meditation alone, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things: interoceptive awareness and neuroception. Interoceptive awareness is awareness of internal organs or internal functions, whether that is GI or any inner system awareness. And neuroception is ability to understand even before the stimuli goes to the higher cortical centers of the brain. So this is very important in critical, swift decision making, and what we call intuition. It's different to instinct, intuition. So that is something that again is a new field where there are lots of research going on. And one of the other things that we normally don't think about is immune functions and lymph circulations, again linked to the musculoskeletal aspects of yoga. They're all various aspects where the science has shown, the investigations has shown in the pathophysiology, psychophysiology rather, as having very much positive benefits. And clearly, and being a practitioner myself, both as a science and public health, we need to continue to look for evidence, but we also need to understand the methodological limitations of evidence. And science particularly assumes it to be distant from what it's observing, whereas we know in reality, we are immersed whilst we are observing. And if we want to know something, we have to consciously, we are ignoring certain things to know something, thinking as if we are independent of everything. I think that is one of the things with the scientific inquiry we need to be very, very mindful of, that there are all sorts of presuppositions in the hypotheses we are making and observations we are making, and that is a limitation in scientific inquiry in itself. And also there are lots of different schools of yoga, not often fully documented in terms of the details on procedures. So it is very difficult to duplicate or replicate and involve scientific research. And clearly there is an emotional dimension. So these are all some of the limitations in terms of evidence building for science itself. I think I will pause there, Dr. Shanmugarajan. I will take any questions, or we can go into maybe a couple of practical aspects, but maybe particularly pranayama if people are interested. But overall, I just wanted to summarize by saying yoga is not what certainly I used to think. It is not just a practice or physical exercise. It's very
right.
rich
I think
evidence base that
okay. I have some suggestion, Shakti. You wanted to leave at 12, so we can finish it off and go for question and answer session. But as you know, June 21st is the International Yoga Day. So perhaps we will invite you again the first Saturday in June, and you can give us some practical aspects of it. Is that okay?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Shakti. Done very well. And I'm very proud that the guy from Coimbatore, he didn't let me down. And we have 70 participants today. And that's a record scoring of our educational series. And thank you very much indeed. Now, before going for question and answer, I'm just taking the liberty of giving some comment. Namaste Sakti. Start of your yoga, the theoretical part of it. And we'll have the practical session in June. We will recall you. I believe you are born in Erode, and you have a charisma of Ivera Periyar. You studied in Coimbatore, and you resemble Satguru of Isha Foundation. I'm going to tell you a secret. Yelil and I were trying to get Satguru for a session, and obviously he's a busy man across India as well as across the world. So we got the Satguru of UK, the British brought up Sadhguru. So that's
I'm just a normal Guru.
You are modest. Okay. Now, as you know, father of yoga was Patanjali. Patanjali died in 150 before Christ, so long time ago. And after that, we took it on board. Hindus mainly believe that yoga is part of Hinduism. But Buddhism and Jainism, they believe also yoga is part of them. But then the bottom line is Jainism and Buddhism was born from Hindu people. So I don't think there is any differentiation. So yoga comes from India a long time ago, and it was popularized in 1893 by Swami Vivekananda in his lecture in the conference in Chicago. So that's how yoga spread to the Western world. And before that, it was just contained within India. But now the whole world is talking about yoga. And as you said, it was also popularized regionally in Kongu Nadu by Maharishi of Aliyar. And then you mentioned Balbir Singh. Again, Sadhbir Singh. So sorry. So he also popularized it. And then I'm just going for a couple of questions. Yoga comes from the word yag. Sanskrit word yag means unity, and you already mentioned this is a union of body, mind, and soul. And apart from that, you extended the definition to individual and the society. And you also said society, domestic problem, environmental. I think you didn't add environmental, so please add environmental issue as well.
Nature, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. So that is the yoga. And in Kundalini yoga, which obviously we didn't go through different types, it says spiritual energy that is said to be located in the base of your spine. I can't explain anatomically. I know you talked about brain and mind and everything, but how base of the spine? Can you explain, please?
Of course. Kundalini is nothing but life energy. Life energy is all over the body. It's not just in one part.
Right.
What has been documented and experienced is in our day-to-day life, we are almost in the automatic mode, not a rational mode, because we have learned these things that we do for centuries and generations and since evolution. Kundalini Shakti is nothing but life energy all over the body. When it is meditated on and brought to the higher chakras, then the level of awareness of our life energy increases. And as the awareness increases, and the philosophy is that the mind is nothing but extension of life energy.
Right.
So when you reduce the frequency of mind, it is suggested that the mind becomes one with the life energy. And at that point, the mind gets the willpower to understand things, to appreciate what's around us, and therefore gets very much strengthened, which is strengthened mind. Strengthened mind is like a sharpened knife. It depends who has it and what it's used for, that the benefit or the impact of that will be. So in yoga, that is why I believe that it is not just about the self. It is also about living in harmony with what's around us. And like you rightly pointed out, the society and nature. So Kundalini Shakti and Kundalini Yoga is about being at one with our own life energy. And first of all, appreciating that and being aware of it. And then using that to change our character particularly how we analyze our own thoughts, how we moderate our desires, how we eradicate our worries, and how we manage our anger. These are all things that through evolution, we as human beings, due to our ego, have developed me and mine mentality, and ignorance and illusion. So when one goes through such an inner travel, one is able to understand their own mind and their own self and their own purpose in life, which through yoga, asanas and meditation, one strengthens their mind, and then they put that to use to change their own personality and character, and ultimately become kind and compassionate. And finally, it is again very much linked to self-realization. So that is the idea behind any yoga. And it's the paths that are different, but the journey and the destination are the same.
Thank you. Now I leave the floor to ask questions, and please put your questions in the chat box, and we will call you one by one. Raising hand will confuse with the other members, so please put your question on the chat box. There is a comment from Jay Prakash. Please, could you explain instinct and intuition? Jay Prakash, are you there?
Yes, Raju. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to ask Shakti the difference between intuition and instinct?
Yes, Dr. Shakti, I hope you remember me. Last week we had a introduction in the meeting of consciousness.
Of course, sir, I do.
I also follow the same path you follow in the Aliyar. That thanks to Raj, long time ago, he introduced me to the gentleman from Pollachi, and then he took me to the Aliyar. I think I had to be grateful for the Raj.
Thank you.
My introduction to that path, long time ago.
Yeah.
In 97, 98. I remember that.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
And so, Dr. Shakti, please explain the difference between instinct and intuition, please.
Of course. And it is so nice to meet you again.
Thank you.
I mean, I used to, people who have been to Coimbatore Medical College will probably realize this. Taking the motorbikes and going to Monkey Falls is part of the lifestyle. And we used to cross that Aliyar thing so many times. It never occurred to me at that time. But anyway, there we go. Instinct and intuition is a really important aspect. Question, very interesting one as well. Instinct, the quick way to describe and respond to that is instinct is what animals do, and intuition is what humans can develop. Instinct is reaction, intuition is response. Intuition is a higher order function, and instinct is much more of a lower order function of being conscious. So everybody is conscious. Animals have instinct. Intuition is something that develops over time, and some of us call it gut feeling, and it improves with being more mindful. And certainly as one practices the last 4 stages of yoga, from pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, the intuitive capacity will increase. And that is also linked to neuroception, which is another phrase, which is about executive decision making in a fraction of a second. So that is not instinct, that is intuition. Instinct is normally reacting to sensory stimuli, but intuition is involving more cognitive functions, but over time it becomes involuntary based on our experience, and mainly experience.
Can I just ask you one more thing on that.
Jay Prakash, just a request to my co-host, Sivapriya. Sivapriya, when members ask questions, would you mind to put their face on the screen? Yeah, thank you.
If they don't have their camera on, I'm unable to do that.
Yeah, he's there now. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Dr. Shakti, the wine dyer philosopher, you might have heard about him from USA. He always says, we speak to the God through prayer. God speaks to you back by intuition. What do you say about that?
Okay. We need to unpack this.
Okay.
What do we mean by speaking? What do we mean by God?
Communication. Yeah.
Yes. See, God, what we understand as God in religions is also understood as consciousness.
Yes.
And is also understood as the nature or the unified force. And the philosophy goes like this, and I'm sure you will be very much aware of this, is that we're all fractional states of the total state, or we're all fractional beings of the universal being. And when one thinks, or when one speaks or prays, it is nothing but sending one's own waves inside. And when you extend that interpretation further to when one is part of the wider being, those waves get reflected, refracted, interacts, and it depends on our instrument or how fine-tuned our instrument is. We may be able to pick the signals back. I think that is very well understood and experienced by ancient yogis and people who have realized their self. So whilst we haven't got the radio or the instrument to tune back the signals and interpret it, certainly the belief is in Eastern philosophy, the belief is that we're all fractional states of the total state of consciousness, and therefore depending on how we are able to receive the signals, we may be able to interpret that. And that could be also intuition. You're very right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Shakti, Mr. Ramanathan is asking your email ID. Would you mind to type it before we go for the next question?
I will, sir. I will.
Thank you. Next question, I think Jayabalan. Jay, are you there? Jayabalan, please unmute.
I'm here, Raju.
Okay.
Dr. Karunanidhi, you have a very important name historically. And the various theories and definitions you put forth about yoga are very interesting. And for me, one of the observations about the yoga practicing people they are all looking very calm, smiling, contented, and happy, and also some excessive facial hair if they are of the male gender. And you fit into all the definition, and the photograph they have provided for us for this meeting, your beard was not as big as now, just like our Prime Minister's beard. This is also seems to be growing nicely. As an orthopedic surgeon practicing for more than 40 years, I find yoga is the greatest weapon to have in one's armory, especially as a prevention. Varumun kapavandan arivali அப்படினு சொல்லுவாங்க. அது மாதிரி yoga is one of the very, very useful thing to have in one's armory. And you are in the public health. And do you find the government here encouraging yoga in primary care situation, If they are, kindly tell us how they are encouraging. And if they are not, tell us what we should do to encourage them. Thank you very much. And excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I am also from Coimbatore, by the way.
Oh, very nice to meet you all and the alma mater. I think that itself is a great experience. I'll just briefly comment on the primary care situation. In the UK, the awareness of yoga and people practicing yoga has really rocketed up in the last decade. It wasn't that popular if you go back to 20 years, but there are some surveys that suggest that in the last decade, 15 years, there is a real increase in the percentage of people reporting that they have done yoga of some sort. And you are very right to point out the musculoskeletal benefits are the immediate ones that one can actually realize, and it can be done from as young as 8 years to right till the end. We use our own body, our own place. We don't have to even go out. No membership needed. Only membership that's needed is you have to have a breath. And people say that even if you can't move, so people who are paralyzed, if they have learned yoga in the past, just the thought of moving the joints and the practice is itself meant to has been shown to be improving the self-worth and eventually recovery. On the primary care, the current trend is, it is not very common in the UK, yoga as part of the healthcare provision, although it's coming up as part of wider social prescribing. Social prescribing is the best way to describe yoga at this moment in time. And that is how it's coming up. And there are lots of things related to low-level depression, mental anxiety, and it is also being part of the volunteer. So there are lots of volunteers that are actually doing that. So that is how it's coming up. But I think we need more documented research, or at least experiential documentation of how people are finding it beneficial. This is not to replace the current medical practice. This is also not like a pickle. This is part of the ingredient, and this can complement and actually reduce the demand for spending a lot of time picking up the after effects. So it's a very important aspect. It is only early stages, I think, in the UK. It is gaining more popularity in the public domain as such, but to enter into healthcare domain, if we can do something as people from India and the cultural memory and the heritage, I think we must explore this. This has got a lot of scope, not just in healthcare, but also in education. If you think about memory and learning and ability to learn, especially mindfulness practices, the best analogy I can give is like a sponge. If you spin the sponge fast and then try to pour water on it, nothing will go in. But if you slow down, the ability to soak up is so much. And it's like that. We are distracted by so many external stimuli, particularly mental distractions. If we can slow that down with some of these practices, I believe that there is a lot that we can gain as a society from the young age itself. So thank you so much for asking that question, sir.
My specialty is also sports injuries and knee conditions. And in sports injuries, one of the main cause of sports injuries, tight joints. Yoga both stretches the muscular ligament structures and increases the strength. And I guess that is an important point for reduced injuries, I think.
Absolutely. And also the mental state. The same level of physical fitness, but different levels of mental fitnesses or executive functioning has also been shown to differentiate the performance levels of, this is high-end sports. So that is also true. There are so many dimensions, sir. We could go on about it, but I'm so glad that you raised that issue. And if we can do something about this together, I think we must sponsor.
Why don't we will do that?
Right. Thank you. There are 9 questions on the line. Are you okay with the time, Shakti?
I'm okay, sir. I can stay till 10 minutes past and then I'll
right.
have to leave.
The next question comes from Geeta Ganapati. Are you there, Geeta? Geeta?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Sakthi. Thank you very much for the lovely talk today, and very interesting. And I just wanted to ask you, how long does it take to teach us the pranayama, the breathing part of yoga?
It can be done in as short as 5 minutes.
Oh, because Dr. Raju, I was just wanting to know if we could take away just one part of yoga today, practical aspect of yoga.
Well, other seven people waiting there, Geeta.
Okay.
I think he has something else to do after 12. So
okay, that's fine.
I promise I'll invite him. Sorry.
Oh no, sir. 30 seconds. Just a small tip. No need for any mudra or nothing. Just with anything you do, the straight back, straight neck, flat surface, feet flat. Just keep your hands, clasped together, and just focus on the breathing. Just inhale for. If you inhale for 1 count, exhale for 2 counts. Just to focus on the breath. And any meeting, even for 30 seconds, you do this, you will see the difference. But we can go into the detail at another session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was born in Erode as well.
ஈரோடு முத்திர குத்திட்டீங்க. தமிழ்ல சொல்லுவாங்க பெருமூச்சு விடுங்கன்னு. That's what you mean? பெருமூச்சு.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. Next question comes from another Coimbatore product, Sivakumar. Sivakumar, a consultant psychiatrist from Sheffield. He was on our screen a few months ago. Are you there? Sivakumar? Sivakumar, are you there? Well, I'll read out the question then. The question is supramental consciousness.
Sakti.
What is supra?
This is Sivakumar from Lancaster.
Sorry, Sakti. Sorry.
Sakti,
all right. Okay.
Sorry, Sakti. Thank you for your excellent presentation and keep up the good work. I think we can talk this some other time. People are waiting. So I will give way to other participants.
Yeah. Sivakumar, I promise you, I'm going to invite him on first Saturday in June, 5th of June. So we can have more practical session, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right. And the next one is Chinni Tamilarasan. Okay, he's just pricing you. That's fine. The next is from Armugam Umapati. Are you there, Armugam Umapati? Armugam Umapati. Yes.
Sorry. Yes, thank you very much for the presenting a difficult topic. I'm just interested in more scientific side of it. How does meditation alter cerebral blood flow, thereby influencing the immune systems or endocrine aspects of it? And is the concentrating on something is very similar or same as meditation?
Nice to see you, Dr. Umapati. Concentration is often confused with meditation, especially where the play of language here becomes difficult to communicate. Concentration in the Ashtanga Yoga system is dharanam. Pratyahara is trying to withdraw from to understand its own source. That is dhyanam. And then samadhi is when the source and the waves are at one. So concentration is part of contemplation and meditation, but not as we understand meditation in Tamil. Dhyanam is different from Tamil or in Indian languages.
Okay. Cerebral blood flow?
On the cerebral blood flow, there are things where we know that when you meditate, the blood flow to certain parts increase, but how is not yet, I don't know how it increases, but I can show you that there are some parts of the brain that gets different blood supply. I can see, as you can probably see in the screen, non-meditators and meditators, the cerebral blood flow is very different in prefrontal cortex, parietal cortex, thalamus, and various parts of the brain, which is what the association is. So the causation how is beyond imagination, I think. But we have some studies have shown that the blood flow actually changes between meditators and non-meditators.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Bhuvaneswari. Bhuvaneswari, are you there? Bhuvaneswari?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr.
Are we allowed to see you, Bhuvaneswari?
Oh, my computer setting, I need to reset it, but I will do it next time.
Okay.
It was very interesting. Just a quick question.
Bhuvaneswari is from another Coimbatore product. She's in Columbus in USA, my classmate. Okay, what's your question, Bhuvaneswari?
They do the chair yoga. Is it something is better than nothing, that type of thing? Or what are your thoughts? If you don't have time, you can just share it on the email.
I mean, any yoga is better than no yoga. For some people, chair yoga may be the only thing they may be able to do, but it's a step in the right direction.
What is chair yoga?
Oh, chair yoga is sitting on the chair and moving whatever you can move, and probably also meditate and do pranayama. There are lots of different types of yoga. They even do yoga with lemurs. So it is very important to not to get drawn into or being tricked into some of these things. Yoga is nothing but moving your body, knowing your breathing, and understanding your mind. And there are various paths to do that, and depends on how much big your wallet is. You can choose your school. But actually, fundamentally, this is what it is. There is no magic, there is no Maya Jala, no mantra, tantra, nothing. It's a simple practice of keeping ourselves fit, understanding our breathing, and try to contemplate so that we can live in peace. That's all it is. And different masters have crafted different things. And there are some masters that can teach but may not have experienced. There are some masters that have experienced but can't teach. And it is very rare to have masters that have experienced and able to teach full details, not to wait for 12 years, 24 years before a Shishya becomes. This is the problem with our culture, I think. Well, at least historical culture. We won't tell the secrets till the end. And when it is the end, we will find it difficult to tell the secrets because we can't tell the secrets because it's so poorly. I think we are very lucky in our culture to have all these things completely on the table like a concentrated squash given by some yoga masters. And I think it is for us to unpack all that and benefit from it.
Okay, Bhuvaneswari, you're not going to the chair yet.
No, I'm not going to the chair.
Chariot is different, sir. Chariot may be right at the end.
Chair.
But before that, let's do chair yoga.
Chariot. Okay.
No chariot.
No, it's a chariot, not chariot. Okay. And a comment from Dr. Sivalingam, yoga practice helps to control the hypertension. Do you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. Heart rate variability and yoga practice, particularly pranayama, is very, very beneficial to us, and it has been shown to reduce or stabilize blood pressure. That is one of the very strong evidence base we have. So any type of yoga is associated with better control of blood pressure.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sivalingam. Do you want to ask anything?
Yeah. Thank you for comment, Sakti. Enjoy your talk very much. Yoga, as you said, today it's a big business. It's a global money spinner. So a lot of people, a lot of mushrooming courses here and there coming. But as you rightly said, the 8 features are there, 8 aspects of it as a package. They are all important. But modern emphasis, many other modern Western courses particularly only emphasize the asanas and the physical side of it and breathing and nothing else. But the early thing, niyama, other things are important for get a full benefit. Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
sir. Absolutely.
There's a question from Grace. Grace?
I can see the question, sir. It's general practice, the cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah, she's there. She's there. Yeah. Please unmute, Grace.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's I'm a general practitioner in Liverpool, and I was just wondering, we refer patients for CBT and counseling, etc. So what about yoga? I'm sure yoga would help even more than CBT and counseling. What are your suggestions?
What is CBT? Tell the audience, please.
Cognitive behavior therapy.
Oh, thank you.
Talking therapy. Am I right, ma'am?
That's right, yes.
Okay, this is a very relevant issue here. I think yoga will definitely help. It's probably the awareness of that and acceptance of that is an issue. Often yoga is directly linked with religious practices, but that is changing now. And with more and more scientific research, there is a lot of scope to build in yoga practices and teaching that even within short consultations. You don't have to go on year-long courses to just teach some simple techniques like pranayamam. But as we go into other aspects of yoga, particularly anger management, worry, eradication of worries, and helping people understand their thoughts and channel their desires, these are all things that have got so much relevance to CBT and people with lower-level mental health issues. But clearly, we can't replace the treatments that we have, but this might actually accelerate progress and help.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Grace. Next question is from Mike. Mike, who can I ask on behalf of you, or do you want to ask? Are you there?
Either way, it's okay.
Okay. Mike, show your face. We haven't seen you before.
No, that's me.
Right. Go on. What's your question?
Yeah. Hello, Shakti. Nice to see you in the Northwest BAP here and then back again. From COVID, jumping onto yoga is really cool. So this is a very, kind of a burning question when you talk about, those youngsters talking about yogis and yoga. So do you believe those 300 years old yogis live in Himalayas? It's about long life and, being with oneness, and they can travel in time and whatever.
I haven't seen a 300-year-old person, but I think that this has to be interpreted slightly differently, is my view. It may not be the physical presence, but in thought. And actually, yogic practice is probably one of the few domains where it brings alchemy, science, philosophy, mental health all together, and it's not yet fully understood. According to certainly what I believe, it's not yet fully understood. If you go back to the scriptures, they're all very coded, and one needs to really understand what's in there. But I haven't seen a 300-year-old yogi. But yoga practice certainly, I think somebody else commented, can keep you young, at least in mind.
Maybe Rajinikanth might know. He goes to Himalayas often. By the way, Mike, you resemble Michael Jackson.
That's right.
Any relationship? Where are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a pediatrician working in England, in Manchester.
Oh, thank you.
So, the reason I put this question is, when people talk about yoga, there's always a mumbo jumbo attached to it. and which is partly where it pulls the legs down to say, oh, it's just sitting quietly for a while and doesn't make any benefit. So, and again, when you read through some of those books from the Western people who had visited India to these yogis, they try to emphasize, for example, if this person was able to understand them and then talk about some of their past experiences, they think or they believe this person was able to connect quickly to their past. And it's more like an astrology, a prediction. That's what their level of thinking, rather than really going into the depth of what this person actually means or feels. So if you look at, the gentleman, one who resembles you, Sadhguru, he would talk about people, when you sit with someone, you feel them first rather than listening to them first. So, for example, if a snake comes to you and you are closer, it doesn't listen to you, it just feels you first and then sees you whether you are a threat or not before deciding what next. So this is where that little differentiation, we are not trying to feel, we are trying to listen to that whatever it's saying and then goes off, what you call the Nunipul Mayuradu.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, this is documented. The Ashtama Siddhigalnu sollirukanga. Anima, Mahima, it got interpreted as becoming smaller in size and bigger in size, but actually it's all to do with mental states. And I do believe that you can have the intuition or you can feel the energy if you can tune in. So I think that is something that's not fully documented or maybe widely experienced. But I do think that as we meditate, contemplate, as you bring your mind frequency down below 14 cycles per second and into even below that, there has been previous studies that have shown even 3 cycles per second. There is something there which probably links to the super consciousness that Shiva's question was, but it is not very well understood, and it can't be understood in my view because the instruments that we have can't pick this up. So it's probably more of an experiential understanding. And that is where it gets really muddled up with science. And I think we probably need to unpick the pitfalls of science at some other time. So maybe when the science broadens its horizons, this might become possible.
Thank you, Shakti. And thank you, Dr. Shanmuraja, for the
thank you, Michael Jackson of United Kingdom. Okay, there is a question from without a name. Who is this? It says, is it too late to start for a beginner like me? Question for speaker.
No, not at all. As long as
hello, hi.
Who is that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shakti Karunanidhi. You're a national television person. I've seen you on the BBC Morning News. Thank you. A very interesting talk. I am a pediatrician retired in South Wales, but I also belong to Erode. And I found, I'm really proud and happy to know you this close now. My question is it too late to start yoga? My wife sitting next to me,
I'm a regular yoga practitioner.
She says it's helping her blood pressure and, all that. But I have to start somewhere. So what's your suggestion?
It's never too late, sir.
Yeah.
Even now, just raise your hands. And when we say, namaskaram, that itself is part of moving our joints.
Yeah.
That is not at all the case that you have to start young. You can start any time. Yoga is nothing but movement, breathing, and contemplation. And you can do it as long as you've got breath.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you. I've been motivated now.
When the wife says it's never accepted, sir. Good, it comes from the...
And I look forward to your June talk as well.
Yes, good.
It's universal. When wife says no husband will listen.
Okay.
So don't worry, ma'am.
Right. Okay, thank you, Ranga. Next, Elil Anand has made a statement. Do you want to ask any question?
Just a comment, listening to all the things. We've been talking with Shakti about the evidence base. people were questioning about the preventative aspects, and also about the CBT. Like Shakti said, it's a matter of time when more evidence will be there. And I'm sure, I'm a practicing psychiatrist, and I do interact with we have a special group in the Royal College called Spirituality Interest Group, and we have been trying to gather evidence in that. And like Shakti said, it's just a matter of time before scientific evidence will be there. And I'm sure even in NICE guidelines, we will get yoga as a preventative for mental health problems. And even at the moment, mindfulness-based therapy, NICE does recommend it as a treatment for what we call borderline personality disorder. So there are certain aspects already in the NICE guidelines and in the scientific realm. Just wanted to comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alil. There is a comment from Amar. He says, very good talk. Nagamanikam, excellent presentation. And the question from Madhi and Vijay. Madhi, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Hi, Madhi is a fellow urologist from Cornwall.
Yeah, it's my wife who's got a question.
Is she? Okay.
Thank you so much for the lovely talk, Dr. Shakti. We are just starting, as I said, we are also exploring yoga, but we get confused because there are so many YouTube sessions, so many, because we don't have the opportunity to go and learn it. So I don't know whether you can suggest, it may be difficult, but to suggest something which incorporates meditation, flexibility, as well as breathing. Is it like a daily session, or do you do any workshops that we can attend? That will be very useful.
Thank you, Ma. There is a saying in Tamil, unarndu odudalங்கிறது வந்து வேற, just odudalங்கிறது வேற, உணராமையே odudalங்கிறது வேற. The important thing here is learn from somebody that has got some real experience of that. We can plan a workshop later, but there are certain things it's better learn face to face. So if at all possible, learn from somebody that you actually know, and particularly avoid doing meditations through YouTube channels. You can learn, and I can send you the practice that I do. It takes half an hour during the morning. YouTube clips I can send, but that is only exercises. But for meditation, don't start any meditation through YouTube. Learn properly through a known source. That would be my suggestion.
Because it's so confusing. There's so many out there. But if you just suggest something, it will be.
I will suggest it. If you email me, I will suggest some links that I have experienced. So you can.
And also, if you do some workshops, it will be useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Don't miss out Saturday, the 5th June.
Okay.
Okay, next one. I think S.V. Sukumar says, I am 55. I practiced yoga last year. That's a message for us. Okay, Pramila Jeevan started yoga during COVID time. Are you there, Pramila? No? Okay. All right. Elil Anand made a comment. We do regular sessions through our Curry Watchers group. What is Curry Watchers group?
Okay, we run this healthy eating group over the last 5 years. It's an online group, so people from anywhere they can join. We motivate people to do exercise, eat healthy, and in fact, today between 10 and 11 we had a yoga session. So if people are interested, contact me through that group, through the website www.currywatcher.com.
Curry Watchers, all right.
Hi, Dr. Anand. Can you do it at a later time for the US people? No, my time was 6 to 7. The 11 o'clock is 6 to 7 for me, the East Coast time. So.
Okay, we will do that. If you can WhatsApp me, we'll discuss that later.
Okay. Okay, I'll give Elil Anand the contact details, Bhuvaneshwari. Thank you. And there's a comment from Lata Ganesh, very useful talk. Comment from Geeta, she already spoken to us. Bought BSK Iyengar book last week. Is that the one you mentioned? Yeah. Okay. Email ID. Yeah. Madhi has given his email ID. Shakti is for you. Okay. Well, that comes to an end. Okay.
May I just wish you all good health,
Yeah, but
long
but
life.
don't go away. I have a thanks saying session. Well, thank you, Shakti. You made it wonderful. So on behalf of our group, I thank you very much, and put this June 5th in your diary. And also I want to thank the co-host Elil Anand and Sivapriya, and I thank all the participants this morning once again. And what else? So, I want to introduce the office bearers. Grace, are you still there? She's a secretary of our group. Grace? Anyway.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Shakti and Dr. Sir.
Okay.
It was a lovely session.
And Jayapalan is our entertainment secretary. Ravi Shankar is...
Sanmaraj, may I make a comment, please?
Okay.
We have some excellent audience here.
Yeah.
May I take this opportunity that we are going to have our MSMA virtual meeting 1st May bank holiday. Grace, our
virtual meeting.
One second, Sanmaraj. Grace, our beloved secretary, has already sent a message to you. If any of you have got talents or any of your spouses have got talents to entertain, we will very much like to use your talents and welcome it, and we will put it a show. We have already got some program collated, but if you would be kind enough to send, but it should be sent before end of March, please. Thank you so much, and hope you will entertain our dear friends. It is not necessarily only for UK people. It is for anybody. Like I see that some from Malaysia, America, various places in the audience. If any of you interested, kindly get in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think one correction, Jay. Sorry, you mentioned first bank holiday May. It's a last bank holiday May, 30th of May, 2021.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Right.
But it must be sent to us before end of March. Any program, you can put it in a video or something like that, send it, because it's a virtual one. Thank you.
Okay. We expect a lot of you taking part in our virtual meeting. And Shakti, you can also propose something which we will bear it in mind. And if you have no more questions, I'll conclude the meeting, and thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you all.